Welcome to the CareerJitsu podcast, where we connect the art of Jiu-Jitsu with your career. Our mission is to empower and inspire you with engaging conversations and valuable insights from people just like you who benefit from the shared relationship between your workplace and the art of Jiu-Jitsu, leading you to a more fulfilling and successful life. Hosts Jason Patterson and Frank D'Amelio. In today's episode, we have a spectacular guest. Her name is Carolyn. She is a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and she is also a physical therapist. We are really excited to share with our listeners the connection between Jiu-Jitsu and the medical profession, particularly physical therapy. As a listener, whether you're a medical professional or not, you are going to get some really valuable knowledge and information that you can apply to your career and to your jiu-jitsu training that will reap results. Frank, we are excited about this one, aren't we?
Absolutely. We are so lucky to have Carolyn here because she's smart, she's serious, she flows, and she's going to have a lot of bits of wisdom for us to share with all of our listeners. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot from her right now.
That was a really hard sell. Now I have a lot to live up to.
You can do it.
All right. So nice to talk to you all. I'm Carolyn. I'm a physical therapist, as Jay already said. I come from a family. I have 3 siblings, my 2 parents. So grew up kind of a big family person. And so when I went to physical therapy school, I stayed relatively local. I just went to the other side of Massachusetts. I went to Springfield College, graduated in 2020 in the midst of the COVID pandemic. So yeah, that's kind of my little background, my little intro.
Great.
Awesome, Carolyn. Well, let's just get this out of the way. Frank likes to call Carolyn the mat bully.
Yes, she bullies me every time. She recognizes girl power. And I have learned that it's just best to tap out.
So, Carolyn, let's dive right into the medical side or the scientific side of things here. So, I think the most obvious solid connection that we can make with your career as a physical therapist and in the art of jiu-jitsu is the crossover knowledge of the human body and how it works. Using the knowledge of like anatomical structures of joints, the pressure, the leverage, in origin and insertion of muscles, and how all of that works. I worked in a physical therapy clinic for a little while. I graduated with a degree in physical education and athletic training, so I had an opportunity to work in a PT clinic a little bit, sort of functioning as a PTA, physical therapist assistant. And one of the things that I really love about physical therapy and with all the jiu-jitsu training that I've done is how that connection is between understanding anatomy and how anatomy is so important in understanding and having success, both, most likely having success in your career and in jiu-jitsu. Can you elaborate a little bit with us on how that works for you and how that helps you?
Yeah, certainly. I think it was interesting because I was a PT first and then I started doing jiu-jitsu. So for me, it was that in the beginning, a lot of my PT skills helped in jiu-jitsu because we have a deep understanding of joints, of, where a joint shouldn't go, what a joint should and shouldn't do. And in physical therapy school, you learn a lot about the different congruency of joints and which ways our manual techniques are supposed to help and aid in those movements. So if, a shoulder is a ball and socket joint, then we're supposed to press a certain way on that joint to get more motion out of someone whose joint is stuck, right? So I think understanding a lot of the ins and outs of the different joint congruency helped a lot. And especially when you would say something or teach a class and use, you'd say, oh, your ASIS, put your head at their ASIS. I'm like, oh yeah, that clicked in my head faster than put your head in your hip because I'm thinking automatically that exact point. So it definitely, I think at first it was a lot of that flip-flop where my PT skills helped my jiu-jitsu skills. In that same breath too, I want to say that it was more than just the joint locks. We learned physics in undergrad for preparing for physical therapy, And everything in physics is about leverage. It's about where, that connection between kinematics and physics. It's just the physics of the human body. So I was able to comprehend, as you all know, my favorite stuff is arm bars and triangles. So it was just easy because I could understand why we were using those leverages, where the fulcrum was coming from. And so again, that was that flip flop there. In addition to that, more than just joints and muscles and the ankle locks, the shoulder locks, wrist locks, I had a lot of understanding of diaphragmatic breathing, of intra-abdominal pressure, things that physical therapy is more than just the musculoskeletal system. We also, similar to chiropractic work too, we have to learn about all of the organ systems. So understanding that if I start breathing heavy, my heart rate's going to go up and I'm going to get nervous, and then I'm not going to be able to calm down and control this movement. While at the same time, if I hold my breath during this movement, I'm going to make more intra-abdominal pressure. It's going to hurt more when they do knee on belly if I breathe this way versus breathing out during a movement. So that was another connection that actually helped me as a practitioner, because now I'm doing this combative sport that I've never done before in my life. And now I'm treating people who do either combative sports or very aggressive sports, like even football players, and teaching them how to start connecting their breath work, their movements, their heart rate, things of that nature. So it was kind of really neat the way one thing helped another and then vice versa. So yeah.
I think that's incredible, that kind of nexus of these two worlds coming together.
Mhm.
And I will say that I can see everything you're saying in your game. Like your guard game is so active and intelligent that nobody wants to be in your guard. And I think you apply all these principles very, very well. I love that I learned a new word, joint congruency. I think that I've
I
never
hope I'm
heard.
using that right.
Well,
Correctly.
people, our listeners are going to look it up, and you know what? They'll call in if it's not. But and diaphragmatic breathing. I think these are things that you actually practice. So I've seen it. So looking at the other side of it, I know that there have been people in our gym and also people from all over Massachusetts that do BJJ or sports that you treat.
Mhm.
So what are some of the most common avoidable injuries you see in BJJ practitioners?
That is a really hard question to answer for myself, because I don't think every injury is avoidable. I think circumstantially, if you fell that certain way, if you just caught yourself the wrong way, if it was, I mean, even if you look at statistically speaking, right? Because physical therapy is a lot about statistics and research. We still don't 100% know why people are tearing their ACLs. We have all of these theories. Women are more likely, but we don't technically know exactly why. Yes, we have wider hips. Yes, we're more quad dominant. Yes, we have looser ligaments, but sometimes the math of it is more females are going to tear their ACLs when they're, playing a court sport or they're playing soccer versus men. And it's one of those things like in injuries and injuries and injury, I think you could lower your risk of injury
Mm-hmm.
if you become stronger, if you properly prepare and train and strength train. I don't think that you will ever be injury free your whole life if you play sports. I think at one point you're either going to get a sore muscle or you're going to get something that, can't straw that broke the camel's back. So I don't think anything is 100% avoidable. And that's what gets me whenever I'm helping produce anything for my clinic. Like if we're making anything on social media, my bosses will agree with this too. We never make statements that say we're going to bulletproof your knee. We're going to injury proof your back.
Right.
We're going to make you like a solid piece of steel. That just doesn't exist. There's
You
people who are less likely to
right.
get injured,
You
but
can basically though give people strategies to put the numbers more in their favor.
exactly. So my job, I feel like, is more about risk mitigation at some points, because even when I'm treating someone who did tear their ACL and they're with me post-operatively, most of the reason I'm keeping them and working with them is to reduce their risk of doing it again,
Right.
and then giving them the tools to return to what they want to return to.
So this might be a difficult question. but I also love the word risk mitigation. So, is there any generic little takeaways you can give our listeners of what they might want to do to avoid some of the more common injuries that happen in BJJ to prepare to mitigate that risk?
Yeah, I don't have the statistics on me too, but I do think it was knees and shoulders are two of the really biggest injury prone um parts of the body. And the people who get injured the most, your risk of injury increases with number of days that you're on the mat and the lower experience, the less experience you have. So
Hmm.
white or blue belts, people who are less experienced, who are going like 5 times a week, you're going 5 times a week. You're statistically increasing your number of times you're on the mat, which in turn is going to increase your risk of just hurting yourself.
Okay.
B, you're less experienced. You don't know how to fall the right way. Someone might do a move on you you're not used to, and you post the wrong way instead of turning your wrist, right? So there are these factors that come into it of the why those people are injuring themselves more often. When you get to the higher level, like you get to brown and black belt, now you're doing more dangerous moves like heel hooks, things that just put you at higher risk. But in that same breath, you do know how to roll out of it. And the other person understands where you're going to roll out of it.
Right.
So if you're in a safe practicing gym environment, you're not trying to rip each other's knees apart every week you're here. So I would say if you want to reduce that risk, you need to add some type of strength component once or twice a week. You don't have to be a gym rat. You literally have to add a once or twice a week strength component. And in addition to that, understand who you're rolling with, put your ego to the side and understand what your skill level is. And don't just try something because you saw it on YouTube. Like, drill it with someone first at the least, or maybe talk to your coach about it because they could even watch you attempt it and be like, okay, this is the actual move you saw and you're interpreting it the wrong way. Because I'm sure, Jay, you've probably seen that before. Like someone's like, oh, I'm trying to do this berimbolo I learned online, and they're totally kicking the wrong leg out or they're not trapping an arm. And you're like, well, let's tweak it here. And then this is how you actually do it. So I would say those are just a couple ways
Some good
you could
takeaways.
try.
Yeah, I've seen firsthand the asset of having somebody like you in our school, and how much you've helped other training partners
Mm,
understand their limitations when it comes to them having an injury.
mm,
So for our listeners, what types of things can you, help us with in terms of, I know that you do an evaluation process, like when you get somebody that comes in with an injury in PT, I'm assuming you evaluate them and then you determine like a treatment plan,
mm.
right? So with jujitsu, is there something that like, that you can elaborate on in terms of like somebody who has an injury, they're training, they're trying to get through their injury, they really want to continue training,
Mhm,
but they have limitations and they need some modifications.
mhm.
Can you help us out a little bit with that? Help our listeners out a little bit with that?
Yeah, I think there's this kind of like a twofold question. The first fold of that is no one person's the same. And I tell every student that I have that I'm training for physical therapy, no one person's going to come in the same. You're going to have different hobbies, you're going to have different goals, you're going to care about other things that other person's going to care about. You and the PT might not be on the same page, so you have to understand that you need to be on the same page as your client or as your student, right? So that's the first fold of that is I want to understand what is your goal in regard to jujitsu. Do you want to get back on the mats faster? Do you want to compete? Are you a hobbyist? Are you someone who's going hard 5 times a week? Once I can understand that, my goal is never to take someone completely off the mats. Unless you have something really serious going on, then we'll take you off the mats. But there are so many ways to reduce the percent of intensity you're going at. For example, anecdotally, I've had a couple people with shoulder issues, and to get them back on the mat, there was a lot of conversation about, okay, you have more than one weapon. Let's use some different weapons so that we're not posting all the time on your shoulder. Let's work your guard game instead. And you tell every training partner you're with, before we start, this is the shoulder that hurts. I'm not going to be posting on it, only drill on the other side. So then it becomes, okay, you're working on a different game, and then
And you're protecting
you're
yourself.
protecting yourself, and you're protecting the other person from being the one who hurts you more.
Mhm.
Because as much as
Yeah,
you're
nobody
protecting
wants to
yourself,
hurt.
no one wants to be that person that, oh, I tore so and so's ACL. Like, that sucks when you're that person, you know?
It's your favorite part of the show, tap in time, where listeners get to tap in with their comments, their feelings, and their suggestions. So, right now, we're wondering if any of our listeners out there may also work in a physical therapy capacity or any therapeutic capacity for that matter, either with your hands or maybe even mental health. And if you're seeing some of the same things that Carolyn is talking about, if some of your experiences maybe parallel that, or maybe you have a different perspective to offer, please drop some comments. Let us know what you're thinking, and we'll be sure to share that with all of our listeners. Thanks so much for joining us for Tap In Time. So I really like the way you're talking about your relationship with people on the mats. How do you see that playing out? The things you've learned about that, how does that play out in a professional environment to you?
I don't understand the question.
So
Just say it again.
so you're saying that you have an issue
Hmm.
and this issue is affecting your performance,
Hmm. Okay, like an injury or
but
something.
you need to communicate with your team about what you need to be successful
Mm.
so that you can continue to
Hmm.
perform on the mats in a different way.
Hmm.
Do you think that that philosophy can be applied, juxtaposed to professional development, where
Absolutely.
you're in an accounting firm or you're an engineer or a
Absolutely.
group of physical therapists and you have your your best practices and your goals, but you might not be able to do something that's on your plate and you need to call in your team?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually, in the practice that I practice at, we have meetings at least about once a month. We have a really big group meeting at my clinical location, and we get to talk about cases, we get to talk about strengths and weaknesses. We learn something new from our clinical director, and then we practice on each other. We have the opportunity to say, hey, here's this case I'm working on. Here's all the evaluation I've done. Here's what I've tried so far. What am I missing? How can I make this better? Because at the end of the day, if you have that ego of, no, 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 I got this, then you're not going to learn anything. You're not going to grow, and you're not going to become a better clinician. I have students that I've been a physical therapist for 5 years. I just had a student that finished his rotation with me that I was doing this one thing with like he used this student, it's his second career, so he used to fit boots and he used to work with feet all the time. So I was doing this foot exercise and he made a suggestion and I kind of stopped for a second. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I never looked at it that way. Show me what you're talking about. And I stepped back and I let him show me exactly what he's talking about. And I learned, like, a whole new world opened up for me. So again, that connects to jujitsu because no matter what belt you are, you can always learn something from someone else.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 10 years, for 5 years, for 1 year. Yeah, the person who's a black belt is probably going to know more than the white belt, but that doesn't mean they can't learn from one another. And it can be at any level. So I tell my coworkers too, listen to what the student is saying or listen to what the students are coming up with because there's always new research coming out. There's always things that are going to change. If you meet someone who's been a PT for 10 years that hasn't looked at any new research, find a new PT. Same thing with jujitsu. It's a forever evolving sport. There's so many new things coming out. We should be learning some of those new things and, adjusting what we do and, you know, building on the foundations that we have.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the collaborative efforts that you're speaking of in terms of like, how they apply on the mats and in, your physical therapy profession. You have a lot of, say for example, you have to communicate with the patient, you have to communicate with the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
or anybody else who's treating them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's an OT or whatever. And on the mats, we have, like you said, a lot of different levels of training partners or different body types or different intentions, or some people want to be a fighter, some people are just training for recreational purposes. So there's a lot of dynamics too. There's a lot of dynamics as you know, as a physical therapist, and there's a lot of dynamics on the mat, and collaborating together to make sure that everybody is safe, everybody is progressing, and you know that's great.
It's actually funny that you say that too, because we do have the responsibility of communicating with doctors and physicians and other rehab specialists. And there's going to be times, just like in jujitsu, you might not agree with what the other person's doing, but you have to come out of a place of respect and understanding, because I might think what the surgeon is saying post-op is silly, but I wasn't in there doing the surgery. I don't know how he tied the ACL in. I don't know what kind of screw he used. So I need to do my due diligence to understand where they're coming from and what they did and what they're doing, and meet at a point of mutual respect, instead of calling. If I call that doctor and say, no, this is stupid, he needs to be running already, boom, I just lost all my referrals from that doctor. You just lost respect because you didn't come
Right.
from a place of respect.
Right. And you can
So
translate that to the
translate that to
mats,
the mat
you know, as somebody,
Right.
you know, your training partner, if you're not looking out for them
Mhm.
and you're not communicating, or the both people aren't communicating, you know, somebody's gonna walk away hurt, and then, you know, there goes another body in
It's
the training.
it's your ability to look at things from somebody else's lens
Mhm.
is what you're talking about, and having compassion, empathy, and the ability to change your perspective and see it from their side as well.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's great. Just one quick question. I know that in your field, it's typically a little bit female dominated,
Mhm.
and in jujitsu, it's a little bit more male dominated. Real quickly, do you have anything that you would like to say to females who are professionals?
Mhm.
What the benefits for the female listeners out there of doing jujitsu might be for their, not only for their jujitsu, right, having fun in jujitsu, but for their careers.
Yeah, there's a huge carryover. I think on one level, you gain so much confidence, you gain the ability to set boundaries in your professional life and your personal life. And yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said as a doing a sport that is very male dominated. I'm going to be honest, most sports are male dominated because a lot of sports were started mainly for men. Um, if it's something that you don't feel comfortable starting with men, find an all-female open mat. Start with a self-defense course. Start with something simple that opens that door for you. A lot of female come from trauma. They don't want a man sitting on them because that's going to trigger something from the past. In that same breath, though, it's something you should want to pursue so that you can regain and own that confidence and be in charge of it again. So it really is like it is hard to get over that. It is hard to get over that hump and be comfortable with the discomfort, but that's jujitsu. It's being comfortable in the discomfort and learning and growing. So I do think as a female, yeah, your most gyms are going to be male dominant, but if you're in a healthy environment, you will not feel like the oddball out, because there will be welcoming. They will teach you what they need to teach you. They're not just going to beat the crap out of you because you're smaller than them. They're going to help you grow and learn and be an ally, really.
Wow, that is truly inspirational. That's why we had you on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope our listeners really latched on to that message. That was beautifully said.
Awesome.
Yeah, you know that I think, you know, the translation there, of, you know, people wanting to train, or trying to have people understand, um, training, in jujitsu, and how jujitsu is going to help their career, is another really important part, that I want to just kind of finish up with, because we talked a lot about how somebody on the mats can really benefit from understanding the medical, you know, side of things. But what also about, let's, you know, if you can sort of elaborate for us on the reciprocal relationship between, somebody that does train, and they are in a medical profession such as physical therapy. How can they use the concepts and principles that they learn on the mats in jujitsu to further their career or advance their career? Maybe that's going to increase their work performance. So how can they increase their work performance from things that they learn in jujitsu?
I mean, it's a stress reliever. So everybody has wanted to choke their boss out once or twice. So you go do it on the mats and you get that out of your system. Just kidding. I love
That's
my
supposed to be
boss.
so aggressive.
But it really does. You grow your confidence. You learn to set your boundaries, because even if you want to be the best person at your company, your life can't be work. If you don't have your work-life boundaries, you won't be successful at work because you're going to be burnt out all the time. There are some small percentage of people who can do that, but most humans can't do that. So you really learn how to be firm in who you are, be firm in your boundaries, understand your goals, what you're trying to get out of things in life. Because when you start jujitsu, you're coming here and you feel like you're getting beat up every time you come here. It's like, why am I doing this? And you realize what your goals and why you are doing that, because you keep coming back.
Right.
You keep coming back for more. So I do think that there's like goal setting, boundary setting, confidence building, and failure. You need to fail to succeed. If you keep going for that promotion and you keep failing, if you just stop going for that promotion, you're never going to get it. So then, okay, if I want to get it, I need to reset my goal so that I can get it. Just because you get knocked down once, just because you have to tap out on the mats, doesn't mean you stop rolling. I've competed 5 times now. Have not won all of them. You guys were there for most of them. If I just stop and I just don't keep pushing myself and I just stopped coming back to practice, I wouldn't have my blue belt. So I think that's another thing, is you learn to accept failure as a learning curve, not as I stop and I quit and I give up.
Wow. The power of tenacity.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah, let's wrap this up,
So,
Frank.
yes.
Any like last minute takeaways, Frank? Let's get some last minute takeaways in for our listeners.
Well, I think the big picture here that Carolyn gave us is that the benefit of jujitsu absolutely shines upon your career, and not only your career, this is career jitsu, but on your life. I think if you asked anybody in our gym if jujitsu made them a better performer at work, I bet you every single person would say, I'm more confident. I have the tenacity that Carolyn was talking about. I understand that I'm going to fail on a project. I'm going to be embarrassed by it, but I'm going to go home and be like, it's just like jujitsu. I got choked out by somebody who shouldn't have, right?
Yeah.
Quote unquote. And I'm just going to come back. I'm going to keep working. I think people who do jujitsu kill it in their professions. And then that feeds back. It's an endless loop. And I think that's one of the things I learned from you today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a life changer for sure.
Yeah. And for our listeners, definitely drop some hearts, drop some questions for us. Tell us what you think about some of the wisdom that you gleaned from this. We really want to hear from you as well.
Yes, let's wrap that up, Frank.
All right.
Thanks so much.
All right, everybody, keep on rolling.
Well, there you have it. As we wrap up today's episode, let's take a moment to reflect on the powerful connections we've explored between the art of jiu-jitsu and your career. In your workplace and in jiu-jitsu, you learn to adapt and navigate challenges. So remember that persistence and the courage to embrace the lessons that you learn are the keys to your growth both on the mat and in your career.